Good afternoon. This is Riverwest Communitas, and today I have a special guest, and this is in relationship to the Co-op Fest. So I have Tess with me today. But before we start our interview, I'd like to just read a couple paragraphs here out of the Riverwest Current. This is by Peggy Schultz. And she says, you say you need a source of income, and the traditional job market just isn't doing it for you. Or you are employed, but mentally and or emotionally unsatisfied with the work you are doing. Maybe you have a desire to feel more part of the community you live in. Would you like to work towards a sense of economic justice for all? Whether your needs are immediate and tangible, or long-term and more ethereal, joining an existing co-op or forming one of your own could be the answer. And your timing for looking into the possibilities of a co-op is perfect, because Co-op Fest is taking place Saturday, October 12th in Gordon Park at 721 East Locust Street. So I have my guest today, Tess, who is totally, absolutely enthralled and involved with the Co-op Fest here in Riverwest. And I'd like to welcome you to Riverwest Communitas. This is a radio show every week just featuring people in the community.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So why don't you tell us what this Co-op Fest is about?
Well, it started as just an idea, and it became something far more tangible as people realized that several people were starting to think about it the same way. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to somehow have an event, something that would bring people together to help them learn more about co-ops, but also to be fun, mm-hmm. and for members to have fun, and a place for co-ops themselves to kind of commune, mm-hmm. and get to know each other rather than to be kind of separate entities. And so the Riverwest Cooperative Alliance was formed a while ago with members from each of the separate co-ops. And they too were searching for some kind of an idea or a way to start to bring co-ops together and help with membership and help more co-ops be founded.
Yeah.
And so we came to them and said, well, what about a co-op fest? Mm-hmm. This is the city of festivals. We have Summerfest. What do you get out of it? Except for, very expensive beer.
That's true.
A high ticket price and so on. So we just thought, people like to stay close to the community. This is something they can walk to. This is a perfect way for us to have a festival where it's all volunteer driven. So all of the funds are going back into, helping co-ops found themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's really what it's all about. Helping co-ops become established, supporting other co-ops that are existing, mm-hmm. and helping everyday people understand that they can have some say in the job market because mm-hmm. they can be their own job creator.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the past. Now, what was the first co-op in Riverwest?
Well, that's really hard to say, mm-hmm. because this place was founded, there were so many different immigrants that lived here, and there was a large German socialist movement, as mm-hmm. well as a large Polish contingent, and second son English, and Irish and Italian. So it's really hard to say what kind of informal co-ops may have been started here. The one that comes to mind for me is the Outpost. Uh-huh. Because I was a member of it back in 1970 when it first founded, uh-huh. and I remember going to it up on Keefe Avenue, and all they had was great big bins of grains and beans, uh-huh. and maybe a couple of fresh, somebody would come back a truck up and there'd be some fresh vegetables here and there. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. So really, I guess the co-ops that, as we know them today, outside of church groups or just neighborhoods organizing, or some guy in a truck going down the middle of the streets, was probably the Outpost. And you said that was located, where was its location?
It was Keefe and, Holton.
Keefe and Holton.
Right.
Wow.
And it was a great big tall building. I think it's been torn down long since.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So but then the Outpost moved a couple times after that, didn't they?
There was a couple of different locations, and then they finally ended up with the big store on Capitol.
Yeah.
So, and that was their first store.
Do you feel that Outpost is still connected to the Riverwest community, or you think it's its own entity now?
Well, they create 380 jobs for the people of this area, and and there are other area stores.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, just in that respect, I really respect what they're doing, because they are not Walmart. They are not a big box store in that respect. So I feel that, I know there's different feelings about things that have happened in the past with the community, but I think some of that's gotten resolved, and I think Outpost is trying really hard to reach out, and they're actually going to be, they were the first ones to say, yeah, we'll be on board.
Oh, so they will be
And they're going to
involved.
have a booth there.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was, to me, a great big handout to let's all work together.
Yeah, yeah. So then, following Outpost, what would have been perhaps the next co-op that's still in existence today?
That's still in existence today. I would guess that would be the Riverwest Co-op grocery store and cafe.
That's on Fratney and Clark.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And that took about 7 years of neighbors talking and thinking about it, and eventually they had a buying club, and then the buying club turned into a space, and then the space eventually became a full-fledged grocery store, and then about 4 years or 3 to 4 years after the store was started was when the actual cafe was opened, and and then of course that was piecemeal together bit by bit as we were able to afford different materials, to outfit everything and be up to code, and it's a labor of love, no doubt.
So what other co-ops are in just the Riverwest area? There's the grocery store, there's the public house. We know about that's the latest one, right?
Correct. Yeah. Public house is the baby. There's People's Books, and they're right down on Center Street, down from the Jazz Gallery, and Riverwest Radio.
Yeah, right, a couple doors over.
Center Street's a happening street, really.
It is.
Anyways, and they were individually owned up until 7 years ago when they became cooperatively owned. So they were a transition co-op, which is very interesting as well.
Yeah, that is very interesting, because most people, I think that, people come together and they say we're going to form a co-op, and you've got some neighbors who get involved, and the next thing you know, it just starts to grow. But that's not always the case, is it?
No.
Things can always come from different ways of forming. I'm familiar with the Land O'Lakes butter, for instance, which was privately owned, and then it became a workers' co-op. So, and how long I can't even remember how long I've been eating Land O'Lakes butter.
Right.
It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
So, so we have the grocery store, we have a bookstore, we have a public house, or a tavern or bar, as others might call it. And I think there's an artists co-op.
Well, there's the Riverwest Artists Association, which is a nonprofit. So it's not really a co-op in that it doesn't have all 7 of the rules or whatever they are for being a co-op. But the idea is that they are member-owned and they are democratically run, and to us, that's what's important. So they've taken on a big role.
Yeah.
And then there's, and I guess I just want to say about the Riverwest Artists Association that today is Art Walk.
Yeah.
And so I know it's raining today, but maybe tomorrow will be better. So get out there and go into the artists' homes. It's so fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, they're really like reaching out into the community as a cooperative should. So. And they were founded because of the Milwaukee Art Museum. The Milwaukee Art Museum came to Riverwest, believed that we were really full of artists, and said we'd like to showcase this. So they created the Art Walk, and then needed help in putting it together. So some of the founding members of Riverwest Artists Association came from helping MAM to do that walk. And that was Jill Sebastian and the late Ron Biddix, and some others. So that was 34 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it's still going strong.
It's still going. And what connection does MAM have with it still today?
They really don't. It just became, the artists took it over, and they've ran it ever since.
So there's another way, another way. So, okay, and then I know in the neighborhood we also have a group of anarchists. I'm not guessing that they're a co-op. I'm not even quite sure what you would classify a group of anarchists as, other than they're paying rent at some space. And they have their point of view. Are there any other co-ops?
Well, there's Build Milwaukee, which is a carpentry co-op, and it started in 2009, and they are a cooperative of carpenters that go out and sell their services, and there's also some concrete workers and bricklayers in there as well.
Well, where are they located?
I don't know their exact address. I know that you can contact them through, like, they have a website and a phone number, and if you actually go to co-opfest.org and you click on their name under Co-op Village, it'll take you right to their website.
Okay.
So if you need to get your windows fixed from the rain or your basement pumped out or something,
Yeah,
give Peyton a call.
Yeah. Wow, that's good. I didn't even know they existed. So what other co-ops are out there?
Well, there's the Riverwest Investment Cooperative, and this is a group of people that are, they have investments, and they can do it through cash or through sweat equity. And they buy properties, and they fix them up, and then they turn around and resell them, and or rent them out, and then that goes into the investment cooperative.
And now are they connected to the Riverwest Neighborhood Association at all? Or?
No, they're a completely individual entity.
But they are a co-op.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, I know that's really popular right now, and what's growing is something very similar to the Bank of North Dakota, which is basically, it's owned by the farmers. And in North Dakota, because they usually have a lot of farmers, but they are kind of still have a managing board. But what they do is they loan each other money at very low interest rates in order to make it feasible to continue, if you have a bad year, or to continue on farming, to continue expanding your farm and your business. And I know they were doing quite a number of things like that in India as well, empowering women to start their own businesses at home. And what they're, to some extent, what they're finding is that some of the bankers aren't very happy with this, so they try to undermine that. So in this stage, at least in co-op, Riverwest Co-opville, is anyone trying to undermine this idea of forming co-ops, or are we being nurtured?
No, I wouldn't say that we're being undermined in terms of the cooperative businesses, but I definitely will tell you that credit unions are under attack right now. And if you go to CUNA's site, the Credit Union National Association, which actually I believe started in Wisconsin, I want to say. I might be wrong on that, but I know it's very old, 128 years old. So the idea of credit unions is exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about. And so they have a different set of rules and laws. And yes, and they're trying to take away their tax-exempt status because they're not there to make profit. They're there to put the money back to their members and give them low-interest loans and so forth.
That's my understanding. J.P. Morgan is behind that, and that by undermining the credit unions, what they want to do is buy them out. And so they want to own everything. The banks want to own the whole financial. And I noticed that there's been talk about the credit unions and how they are under attack. I think, though, that so many people who were involved with the Occupy Wall Street are pretty much aware of what the banks are up to and will work diligently to, help stop that from happening. But
Occupy, there's actually an Occupy card. Right now they've got several different funds going on, and they're trying to build their own credit card similar to like Discover or whatever, and it's going to be all Occupy and all nonprofit, and it's really wild. And so I've been really following that closely, and that's definitely something to be kind of watching and see where it goes.
Well, we've talked about this here a little bit with starting our own currency. And, by doing that, keeping the labor, as it were, because that's what money really is just an exchange of labor within the community. And hopefully somewhere down the line being able to share that amongst all the co-ops. Even though we're not a co-op per se, we are an all-volunteer organization. We are a nonprofit organization. And to move into the whole idea of it being a co-op radio station is something that is attractive to us. So hopefully that we'll be part of that as well in the future. And promoting, living wage, promoting low-interest loans, to start co-op housing, to empower more people to do the co-op bakery that people keep talking about, to start, an artist, sort of like a consignment artist.
Maker space, possibly.
Yeah, something like that. So it's really just how to get people outside the community, like minds, to invest in promoting this. Exactly. And I'm wondering, with Co-op Fest, I imagine that this is an educational experience for people in the community to find out what co-ops are really about. I think people will find it very attractive because I think they want to they want to give into the community without it just going into somebody's pocket as profit, and so that they experience what comes out of that, which is safer neighborhoods, more productive neighborhoods, and more interesting people, which I don't know if that's possible in Riverwest to find any more interesting people, but just to keep feeding that. So I think in that sense, as an educational tool, it's a great idea. But what are there some future goals? Are there goals that the co-op is looking, the Co-op Fest is looking towards?
Well, right now we've set up a series of workshops. All the workshops are free. You need to sign up for the workshops at on the website. Because we have limited space, so we want to make sure that we can kind of see how the co-op workshops are tracking, and from that we're hoping to gather some data to be able to have further workshops. So if something was extremely popular, then we can maybe bring it back, try to have it in for a larger audience over the winter, and have little one-offs throughout the year until we have Co-op Fest again next year. There's two really, all the workshops are great, first of all, let me just say, but there's a couple that I think are not to miss. And one of them is Fifth Season. It is from Viroqua, and they're coming down, and they're like a cooperative community that has all assets of production for food production and all kinds of other cooperative parts of their community. So it's almost like too much for me to talk about. I don't feel almost qualified. And of course that they will be speaking. And then the other group that I think is extremely interesting is New Era Windows out of Chicago. And in 2008, their company was going to go bankrupt, and they occupied the building. And they refused to leave. And they worked out a deal, and they came up with the funds, and they got some loans, and people trusted them, and they trusted themselves, and now it's a complete cooperative worker collective that's successfully running, and they're paying people well, and people are happy, and we're so excited to have them. And they'll be the last speaker of the day at the Public House. So. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a real big deal. I was really surprised. When it first started, the strike started. They didn't even have paychecks for those people. They were like, several months behind paying them. And they were able to work something out. And I think that was done under Richie Daley, under the mayor there. He helped negotiate that. So so you can, utilize your government at that point, put the screws to them, as they say, or the pressure on. And then the Viroqua, I'm not surprised. Viroqua is,
it's the land of plenty.
It is.
We love Viroqua.
Well, we love Viroqua too. In fact, the first person I called was their radio station in Viroqua, WDRT. So there's always this connection for some reason between here, Viroqua, and Minneapolis. It's just how it kind of goes. I don't know why.
It's the Viroqua connection.
Yeah. And I know, I don't know how many people I know in Wisconsin say, well, when I get up there in age, I'm ready to retire. Most of them educators. I'm moving to Viroqua.
Right? It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it is a beautiful, beautiful area.
There's a couple of other things I'd like to tell you, too, about Co-op Fest. In the village, the Riverwest Artists Association will have several artists, face painters, possibly a henna painter in our tent, and things for kids to do. So this is not just about education. It's about having fun together and just sort of celebrating the harvest, end of the year. And we are going to be working on a collaborative art project, kind of the first of its kind in our neighborhood. And what we're doing is we will have hexagon shapes of wood that will be primed and ready to be painted, and some that can be made into mosaics. And we'll have all the materials there and artists to help guide you. And we're hoping that co-op members come, and people, even 2 or 3 people, maybe come together and make a piece, and they will then be fit together like a large honeycomb, which is the idea of, total cooperation.
Yeah.
Who knows better but than our beautiful honeybees?
Exactly, and our symbol here is bees as well, because we sell honey as a fundraiser, and our honey bucks or bee bucks, whatever you want to call it, is the currency that we're developing is based on honey.
On honey.
Yeah.
Talk about gold.
That's real gold. You can eat that gold.
Yeah, and you know what? It's one of the only things that an insect makes in the world that a human being can survive on.
Yes, that's
100%.
true. And it never goes bad.
Yes.
It never goes bad.
Amazing.
It lasts
It's really
forever.
the nectar.
Yeah, it is really something.
So we're hoping that we'll just see what we get this year.
Yeah.
You know, how many we get done and how it all works out, and then we're hoping that we can continue to do this kind of year after year and label all of them, and then have it as a traveling show around different co-ops in the state, and then have it sort of be out all year, and then come home for Co-op Fest once a year.
That sounds wonderful. Now tell me, how did you get involved in all this? Where's your
I don't
background
know.
in this?
Well, I have a lot of event planning and production, rock and roll production, that kind of thing. I've been doing that for over 25 years. I worked Summerfest. I worked with Local 18, IATSE, for over 23 years. I owned my own video production company and did all the image mag at Marcus Amphitheater.
Wow.
I had my own catering company. And I've catered for everybody from the Rolling Stones to, you know, Sarah McLachlan and, you know, Jay-Z. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and then when I changed I moved back to Riverwest quite some time ago. And when I did, one of the things that I thought about was being able to use these skills for the good of this community, because I was born here and I grew up here.
Yeah.
And I really loved the neighborhood. So I wanted to come back here, and that was what I wanted to do. That was my intention.
So where did you grow up in Riverwest?
On Humboldt and Hadley. Went to school at St. Casmer's.
Oh, you
Kindergarten and everything.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. And then you moved to, did you stay here for high school? Or?
No, right after the riots, my parents moved to the south side. My father worked for General Motors, but originally was at AC Delco in Kenilworth.
Yeah.
And then when they built that big plant out in Oak Creek, my father, it was about 2 years before they built it, and then everything happened in the city, and a lot of burnings and all the stuff, and we had the curfews.
Yeah.
And you know, my dad was scared, and so he said, all right, as long as I have to work out there, we might as well live closer. Yeah. And I was devastated.
I could imagine.
Absolutely. All my friends were here. I mean, I used to ride the bus back and forth. It was awful.
Yeah, it's really hard to part at that point, especially when you know the neighborhood so well. You know every gangway, you know every alley, you know everywhere to turn. You know, as a kid, when you're growing up in a neighborhood. So then you moved out to the burbs, and then or near the burbs, the south side.
Right. Well, and then I moved back a couple times in my life, and at one point, like I said, I decided to move back here permanently. And when I did, I decided that I would get involved in the different organizations that were doing good things for the neighborhood, and I would try to give them some of my skill in event planning and production. And
you didn't move back into the house you grew up in, did you?
No, I would have loved to, though. I really, if it ever goes up for sale, I want it.
Yeah.
It had walnut woodwork.
Oh, wow.
It was a German built, just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, this neighborhood in Harambee has some very incredible homes.
Yeah.
And, the neighborhood itself is just so unique in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see why, people stay, why people want to really work this neighborhood into a people's neighborhood. It's always kind of been that way, hasn't it?
Yes, it really was. I mean, when I was a kid, you knew everybody on your way to school. Like, you could, if it were your parents, if mom was making dinner and dad and the guys that played baseball down by the pumping station decided to go over to, Stan and Flo's over on the corner of, let's see, would that be Wheel and Hadley? Mm-hmm. You just go stick your head in the door as a kid. Go, hey, Dad, dinner's on, and everybody'd be like, "Hey, well, go home, Wally." And they'd all say hi to you, give you hugs. It's like people just knew who you were. You knew your neighbors. I mean, you gardened together, you shared food, you canned together, everything. It was like that. Yeah,
and I think people long for that. They long for being in the community. I think they had a taste of what the global community is about, and the internet, and they found that that separation, in a sense, not still being involved in your community, saw it deteriorate. And now people are saying, especially with these economic hard times, there's got to be something more than just chasing the dollar.
Yes.
Just chasing stuff.
Yes.
And this neighborhood definitely has that as its vibration. You know, they want more than just stuff. They want to participate. They want to create. Now, when you grew up here and you kind of have those values, when did you decide that the co-op is what I want, or this is always something that you've always had, with you?
Oh, the cooperative aspect of it?
Yeah.
Well, I think I had it when I was young because of just our family situation.
Mm-hmm.
My mother came from a big family, and it was just, we were always having to work together and sort of negotiate things.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school, I was very much involved in, against the Vietnam War and a lot of other kinds of activities that had to do with really looking at what was important in culture and society. And I mean, I started growing my own food at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18. I started looking at what we were eating and what was happening to the family farm. And so on. And so, I mean, these have been, issues that have always been very close to my heart. And I've worked hard to learn about, how to live a more sustainable life. But at the same time, like I said, I was working jobs, moving, here and there, and some of that went to the wayside. And when I came back here and I saw that these young people, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they were looking at the same kinds of topics that I had looked at 40 years earlier.
Yeah.
I was, okay, I'm here, I can help you.
Yeah.
Let me help you. Let me, because I get this.
Yeah, I'm seeing that more and more. I'm seeing people who, I say older people, more mature people, hooking up with younger people, and they're reaching back to the way things used to be when they were growing up, and they see that aspect is missing in their lives. And even though some of these kids, or I could say young people, had parents who were kind of like what we call kind of hippies. They were gardening, they were using organic, foods, going out to the farm and so on and so forth. Mostly, I think the people that I've met involved in that aspect over the 80s and 90s were involved in the Waldorf schools. But there's a lot of people who were just sort of just going along, with the grocery store and learning computers, outdoors were almost forbidden in a way. Going outdoors, you can't go swimming in the lake anymore. You can't, as a kid, 11, 12, 13, you can't walk around the streets by yourself anymore. So this fear sort of eased in. And I think that, people my age and older are looking back and saying these kids are missing a lot. And these younger people are going, well, I had a little bit of that, or I had none of that, and I desire that. I want that cooperation. I want, to get involved in foods and making things and being artistic. And we really do have the technology to do it all. We have the wherewithal and the wealth. It's just that that's sort of transferred over into into the hands of a group of people who are not looking out for our best interests. And I think people have stepped forward and they've protested, they raised their signs, they raised their fists. They haven't come out with the pitchforks yet and the torches or the guillotines, right? Not yet, but they're looking at it, and they're looking at it through the eyes of Martin Luther King, of Gandhi, of Thoreau, and they're saying
Father Gropi.
Father Gropi, right? When there is actually a school named after him.
And he was here in my neighborhood when I was growing up. Because he was in the same parish, the same type. Group as St. Casimir's, and the nuns were the same nuns that they had at St. Boniface as we had here. So there was sometimes cooperative activities and picnics and all kinds of other things. So I remember it very well.
So he had the right idea as well, and that's homegrown too. That's and that probably needs to be examined more, and perhaps maybe even spread more around the neighborhood and around the city of Milwaukee, that this person existed, that this person had, the best interest. And, perhaps when there is the Co-op Fest amphitheater here, it'll be named after him.
That would be fantastic.
That's how you do it, And
just keep growing.
Yeah, you keep growing, and then you start naming buildings after these people, and then, people say, oh, well, that's who they are. You erect a statue to them. And so this is great. So your background is in this. It's starting to happen. Why don't you give us just a little bit of a summary of when this is going to start, how it's going to start, and again, tell us the website as well.
Okay. October 12th, Saturday, you sign up for your workshops online at www.co-opfest.org, and just go to the workshop page and you'll see the huge letters there, sign up here. You can see all the descriptions there and all the speakers' bios. Also, you can look at the Co-op Village. That's going to be starting up around 9 a.m. and people can check in to the park at 9. There will be an RCA tent with some lovely bakery from the Riverwest Bakery, and you can have if you're attending a workshop, you can grab something to nosh on your walk over to Center Street. The workshops are going to be at the Jazz Gallery Center for the Arts at 926 East Center Street, and the People's Books, which is at 804 East Center Street. You can see both of those addresses on the website as well. And let's see what else. All of the other vendors will be at or let's not call them vendors. Let's call them co-ops, because that's what they are. Mm-hmm. They will be at Co-op Village. And so what's going to be really cool about that is you can walk around and talk to the people who are working co-ops. You can get some great food. The Riverwest Co-op will be there with their great deli items. The public house is going to be serving local lakefront beer. Wow. And other things. And we will also have, everything from Educators Credit Union, Common Ground Health Co-op will be there if you want to find out about ACA, and join them to, have your insurance through them rather than to go through a private insurer. Yeah. There will be the RW Radio. Yeah. The Zagora Canning Co-op is a new startup co-op that's looking for women that want to, and men who want to get started to can, and they can sign up, and we'll start working together on finding spaces that we can together and buying farmers' crops in bulk and buying sugar and vinegar and, jars in bulk and so forth. Mm-hmm. The Riverwest Bakery Co-op will be there. They're looking to start up bread CSAs and bakery CSAs. So if you want that fresh baked bread and you just can't get time to do it, you can just call on them. So. And then, of course, the Artists Association is working on the collaborative art piece. And then we have entertainment. We have Denny Rowan, Denny Rowan from Rowan Guitars, who's probably one of the best luthiers in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And he will be playing with his son, Josh. And then after that, we have DJ a la Rhythm, and then Insouciant, and later on 4th Street Elevator. So it's going to be a night of revelry and fun, and bring your kids, and then take your kids home to the babysitter and come on back.
Well, that sounds wonderful. The only thing missing are the chicken and the cow, because then we could get some fresh eggs, which there are a couple of people in Riverwest who do have chickens now.
Yes, there are.
And we just need a cow, and we'll have fresh milk.
And we'll be all set.
We will be all
set. Honey and milk.
Honey, milk.
The land of honey and milk.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of fried eggs.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming in, Tess.
Thank you.
And please, anyone else involved in the Co-op Fest to come on to Riverwest Radio. Also, if there is some representative who would like to keep this going, keep this candle lit, and have a show and talk about the co-ops and just, exclusively focus on that, they're welcome to come. We'll find some time for them weekly. That would be so wonderful.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. So
all right.
we'll have to connect with that. And I want to thank you once again. And
it's my husband, Jack.
I was going to say she came accompanied, and it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank our guest again today, and thank you for listening. Remember, these are your waves. You own them. Take good care.
That's all.